Sou cônsul geral adjunto e é muito prazer aqui dar início a mais uma das palestras do Consulado, dentro desse ciclo que a gente organiza todos os anos, né? A palestra hoje, para eu não errar aqui, vai falar sobre admissão em universidades americanas, validação de diplomas e oportunidades de bolsa de estudo. Nós vamos ter duas palestrantes, a Elisa, que fala português, e a Dana, que não fala português, então fala um pouquinho, entende até, mas falará em inglês. E, enfim, as duas são da Sam Houston University, né? State University. Elas entraram em contato conosco e quiseram um pouco também, poderão até esclarecer algumas coisas além dos temas, né, da palestra e falar um pouco talvez da universidade delas. Então, assim, sem mais delongas, eu vou dar início aos trabalhos de hoje. Eu só queria também comentar rapidamente que nós temos ali água, né? Água e chá, água, chá, café e também tem pão de queijo. Isso ali é por conta do consulado. Tá? Agora o resto, claro, se vocês quiserem pedir, tem o cardápio do restaurante, né? Poderão, enfim, tem muitas coisas aí dos brasileiros. Então eu vou, bom, com isso eu passo o microfone aqui para a Elisa para começar a palestra. Muito obrigado, hein?
Olá, boa noite. Boa noite. Meu nome é Elisa Herman, eu sou professora do curso de Comunicação Social da Sam Houston State University. Minha área especificamente é cinema, eu sou coordenadora do curso de cinema. E eu vou falar um pouquinho para vocês sobre não só o meu departamento, mas também o meu college, que é o Fine Arts and Mass Communications, então todas as áreas de artes, música, teatro, artes plásticas e etc. E eu trouxe aqui vários panfletos, várias coisas para passar para vocês, para quem tiver interesse nessa área. E eu posso responder também perguntas gerais sobre a universidade, sobre os cursos, sobre como fazer para entrar numa universidade americana e etc. Mas eu vou passar para a Dana, que ela que vai começar.
Boa noite. I apologize in advance. I don't speak a lot of Portuguese. I do understand some. So if you're speaking with me later, feel free to speak in Portuguese, but I will be talking in English tonight. So my apologies for that. My name is Dana Vanderwalker, and I work in the Office of International Programs at Sam Houston State University. And my role is International Student Recruiter and Advisor. And what that means for you guys today is that I am actually the person at Sam Houston State that processes all of the international student applications. So if you're thinking about applying, your application will actually go directly through me. So I'm a very good person to talk to. If you guys an overview of the university, where we are, our program types, and then Professor Herman, I think, is going to talk a little bit about her department and her college. And then I have two handouts that I've given before we started. One is just all about application requirements, and so we'll kind of go through what's required based on different types of students and different scenarios. And then I've saved the best for last, which is scholarships, funding, and work opportunities, because of course that is where 90% of the questions come from. So just to give you kind of a general overview of Sam Houston State, we are a public four-year university, and we are located on the north side of Houston. Our main campus, we actually have two campuses. Our main campus is in Huntsville, so that's about an hour and a half or so north of here. If you go to Conroe, keep going north, that's our main campus. And we also have a second campus in the Woodlands. So if you guys are familiar with the Woodlands area, there's Lone Star Montgomery, and we are right next door to them. Currently, we offer most of our programs at the main campus, but we are offering more and more programs at the Woodlands Center. And we do have programs that are hybrid, which means you can take them fully at the Woodlands, fully at Huntsville, or a combination of both. So for example, our nursing program, our business programs, our education programs, and psychology are currently all offered at both campuses, and every year that's kind of increasing. So we're offering more and more programs at the Woodlands Center. So just to give you guys more of a general overview, we just topped 21,000 students this year, so we're kind of a medium-sized public university, but Huntsville is a small town, so we feel quite large, and it's quite a beautiful campus. We offer currently more than 85 undergraduate programs and more than 55 graduate programs. And so those range from business to sciences, to social sciences, education. We offer almost every program. There are a handful of things that we don't offer. We don't offer law school, and also we have some limited engineering programs, but we do have some. Some of our most popular programs, one is criminal justice. Criminal justice, we are actually very highly ranked. We're ranked #1 in the state of Texas and #3 in the country for that. And actually, we have a lot of programs that are associated with that as well. So if you come to Sam Houston to study psychology, we have forensic psychology, clinical psychology, and a lot of the psychology students work hand in hand with our criminal justice students, working, for example, with juvenile offenders or with people who are in the prison system. Likewise, we have really good programs in forensic chemistry, which is also related to our criminal justice programs. If you're not sure what forensic chemistry is, I describe it as being similar to CSI, the people who work in the labs that help support the police departments and the agencies that work in criminal justice. And also we have a really big growing program in digital forensics, which, unlike forensic chemistry, digital forensics is the computer sides of things. So if you're interested in hacking, information assurance, data security, we're actually one of the first universities in the country to offer through the PhD level in digital forensics. And so that's a very highly competitive program that's growing every year for us. So I've given you guys all this brochure right here. This is kind of just a general information brochure, but if you open to the second page, you can see there all of our programs of study. And it says, just to the right-hand side, if it's offered at the bachelor's level, so a BA or a BS, that's Bachelor of Arts, Bachelor of Science, the master's level, MA, MS, or through the doctoral level, PhD or EDD, one of the doctorate programs. So, like I said, we're going to talk a little bit about application requirements and scholarship opportunities. But before we do that, I want Professor Herman to kind of take some time and kind of introduce you guys to one of our departments on campus.
All right. Eu vou levantar porque eu sou professora e não sei falar sentada. Não é? Tem alguém mais que professor aqui que não sabe falar sentado? Não é isso? Então, gente, eu trabalho na Sam Houston University faz mais ou menos 5 anos. Eu sou uma assistant professor, tenure track rank, que significa mais ou menos que eu sou concursada pela Sam Houston State University. E eu trabalho no departamento que chama Mass Communication. Dentro do meu departamento, a gente tem várias áreas de estudo que os alunos podem escolher fazer, né? Mass Communication seria a comunicação social que a gente tem no Brasil, né? Então, dentro do meu departamento, os alunos eles podem escolher estudar jornalismo, televisão, a gente chama de broadcast, public relations, relações públicas, né, e publicidade, e cinema, que é a área que eu sou coordenadora, né? Então, esses são os cursos de undergrad, que a gente chama, que são os cursos de graduação, né? Então, eles são cursos de 4 anos e eles todos acontecem no campus de Huntsville. Alguém já foi a Huntsville? Algumas pessoas passaram pela estátua do Sam Houston? Como é que você chega em Huntsville? Você vê a estátua do Sam Houston, tá lá, já está chegando em Huntsville. Então, esses cursos, eles acontecem no campo de Huntsville, com exceção de algumas das aulas que acontecem no campus de Woodlands. A gente tem um curso também de pós-graduação, que está aqui, é o MA, né? MA em Digital Media. E agora a gente tem, eu não tenho o folder ainda porque é um curso novo, a gente tem o MFA também em Digital Media, e esses são aqui no campus de Woodlands. Então, para quem tem interesse em fazer pós-graduação nessa área, e quer um lugar mais perto, esse com certeza é mais perto. Eventualmente a gente também vai ter um PhD na nossa área, a gente está trabalhando em criar um PhD no momento. Tá? Então, essa é a minha área, mais ou menos num resuminho para vocês. Eu tenho aqui vários brochures aqui de cada um dos cursos para vocês, então se alguém tiver interesse numa área específica, por exemplo, alguém tem interesse em jornalismo, alguém tem interesse em televisão, eu posso falar com vocês pessoalmente depois, mostrar os brochures, explicar cada um dos cursos um pouquinho melhor, para vocês terem noção de como são as aulas, etc. Ok? Dentro do meu departamento ainda tem organizações estudantis, né, que é bem comum dentro da universidade, a gente tem várias, eu tenho aqui também um brochure que explica sobre as Student Organizations dentro do departamento de Mass Communications. Então são organizações dos alunos onde eles se juntam para fazer coisas das suas áreas, né? Então, por exemplo, na área de filme a gente tem o The Film Society, onde os alunos se juntam para fazer filmes, né? Fora da aula, eles têm uma ideia que não cabe dentro de uma aula e eles querem fazer, eles se juntam, acham dinheiro para fazer, pegam equipamento para fazer e vão e faz. Além disso, eles têm eventos e outras coisas que eles participam também, né? Além disso, a gente tem uma sociedade de Public Relations, de relações públicas, e eles trabalham com a comunidade local, fazendo eventos de relações públicas para a comunidade local. Hoje, por exemplo, eles trouxeram um jornalista aqui de Houston para falar com os alunos lá em Huntsville, então esse tipo de evento a gente tem com uma certa frequência. A gente tem também várias bolsas de estudo dentro do nosso próprio departamento. A nossa bolsa de estudo mais importante que a gente tem, o scholarship mais importante que a gente tem, é o Dan Rather Scholarship. Alguém já ouviu falar no Dan Rather? Não? Ele é um jornalista muito famoso aqui nos Estados Unidos. Imaginem que ele é o William Bonner dos Estados Unidos. Esse é o Dan Rather, tá? O meu departamento é chamado, o nome do meu prédio é chamado Dan Rather Communication Building, porque o Dan Rather é aluno do nosso departamento. Ele foi aluno da Sam Houston State University. E ele patrocina todo ano uma viagem de 3 meses para Nova York, para um aluno trabalhar junto com ele, com tudo pago e aprendendo sobre jornalismo junto com ele, né? Então, todo ano um aluno é prestigiado com essa bolsa, que é uma coisa assim, extremamente importante para o currículo deles, por exemplo, né? Ano passado, a gente teve assim, a felicidade de ter o Dan Rather vindo até o campo participar com a gente das nossas atividades. A gente fez, inclusive, um festival de filmes baseado num livro que ele escreveu, e ele atendeu ao festival e viu os filmes, e foi muito legal ter ele presente. E ele, assim, é uma pessoa muito generosa, e ele sempre está em parceria com a gente, né? Além dele, outro aluno famoso do meu departamento é o Richard Linklater. Não sei se alguém já ouviu falar no Richard Linklater, cineasta. O filme mais recente dele se chama Boyhood. Quem assistiu Boyhood? Tem o Before Sunset, Before Sunrise, After Sunset, não lembro que é a trilogia dele também. Ele foi aluno também da nossa universidade. Há 2 anos ele veio, mostrou o filme novo dele. Teve um evento para toda a universidade, para toda a comunidade. Então, sempre a gente está fazendo eventos não só para dentro do nosso departamento, mas para a comunidade, para realmente incluir todo mundo, né? Fora do meu departamento, então, tem o meu college, que é maior, né? O departamento fica dentro do college. No meu college, a gente tem outros departamentos. Então, a gente tem o departamento de artes visuais. Então, a gente tem aluno fazendo pintura, escultura, performance, esse tipo de coisa. Temos o departamento de teatro e o departamento de teatro musical, que são muito bem vistos, inclusive, são bem conceituados. A gente tem o departamento de fotografia e o departamento de computer animation. Animação, computação, não sei, ou animação digital. Então, todos esses departamentos, eles fazem parte do meu college, né? A gente trabalha todos juntos. E dança também, esqueci. Dança também, temos o departamento de dança. Então, eu tenho brochuras sobre todos esses departamentos, com mais detalhes, mais informações. E o que eu puder passar para vocês, se alguém tiver curiosidade. Alguém aqui da área das artes que acha interessante essas coisas, gostaria de aprender mais? Algumas pessoas, ok? Então, sintam-se à vontade para vir falar comigo depois. Eu posso mostrar mais especificamente da área que vocês querem saber e passar mais informações. Mas a gente, assim, está muito feliz de estar aqui falando com o público brasileiro. A gente não tem muitos alunos brasileiros ainda na universidade e a gente gostaria de ter mais brasileiros vindo trabalhar com a gente, com certeza. Tá bom? Então vou parar por aqui e deixar a Dana falar da parte que vocês querem saber, que eu tenho certeza que é o scholarship, não é?
Thank you, Professor Herman. Of course, we're saving the scholarship information for last, as you've noticed. Okay, so before we started, I handed out a paper that looked like this, which is application requirements. So go ahead and see if you have that. If you don't have it, maybe Mariana can help pass it out to people that don't have it. So basically, the two main questions that I get as an international student advisor are, number one, how do I apply? And various, versions of that. What's required to apply? I have this special situation. And number two is scholarships. And so those are kind of the two things that I wanted to focus on tonight. I can't cover everything because I know people have a lot of really unique situations. So I will hang around for quite a while afterwards if you'd like to talk to me about your situation, if you have like a specific question that you're curious about. But basically, if you go through on this handout, I've divided it into a couple different categories. So the first is undergraduate study. So undergraduate study, we typically mean bachelor's degree, 4-year post-high school degree. And there's a couple different categories that students can fall into. So I'm going to just kind of go through those because I know some people in this room might be here for themselves or might be here for their children or for a friend. So the first category of students I have over here is for students that are currently enrolled in a U.S. high school. So if you are here with your kids and they are enrolled in Houston public schools or Woodlands, they can stay and go to college here. And actually, if they're here in high school, there's a lot of benefits to them staying and going to college in terms of them qualifying for different scholarships. And also, one added perk of students being in high school here is that their requirements are essentially the same as what an American high school student would be to get into college. And so basically that's an Apply Texas application. Apply Texas is our common app. Has anyone heard of the Common App? The Common App means there is one website where you can apply for many different schools. So for us, Apply Texas is that website. It's applytexas.org. Not applytexas.com, applytexas.org. So if you're wanting to apply to 10 different schools in Texas, you can use them all. You can apply for them all through Apply Texas. So it makes it really convenient. You don't have to fill out so many different applications. Okay? So if you're coming from a U.S. high school, we just need your U.S. high school transcript and then your SAT or ACT test score. So in the U.S., I'm not sure if you guys are familiar, but things are a little bit different. Instead of taking an exam to get into a specific college, you take one exam, the SAT or the ACT, and you can send that score to as many different colleges as you want. So it's a little bit more streamlined, it's a little bit easier for students that way. Okay? And these requirements here are actually the exact same requirements for American high school students. So that's why in some ways if you have a child here in high school, it's quite easy for them to transition into college. Okay? So if you have a child or a teenager that's in high school outside of the U.S., it's slightly different. So you're still going to do the Apply Texas application, but you are going to need a high school transcript and what we call a third-party transcript evaluation. So what that means is basically you send your transcript off to a company that translates and evaluates the transcript. So I'm going to get into that a little bit more later because that's kind of a complicated concept, but just kind of keep that in mind, transcript evaluation. And then you need TOEFL or IELTS score. Who has heard of the TOEFL? Who has taken the TOEFL? I didn't. I'm sorry. Okay, we'll talk a little bit about that more later as well. If you have, or if you are a student that's enrolled in a U.S. community college, for example, Houston Community College or Lone Star College, the process is also quite simple to transfer. You just need the Apply Texas application and then your transcript from that community college. You may need the TOEFL scores, which I'll get into in a moment. And then for students outside of the U.S. at another community college or university in Brazil or in another country, it looks very similar to the high school requirements. So you need the Applied Texas application, the university transcript evaluation, and TOEFL score. Right? So this is all on our website, and also I've brought a couple different types of materials here. So if you want to come talk to me at the end of our session tonight, I can tell you which material is best for you, whether it's the high school information, the transfer information, graduate information. We do also have a little bit of information in Portuguese. Okay? So those are for all of our undergraduate students interested in bachelor's programs. For students interested in graduate study after your bachelor's program, so that can be master's degree, it can be doctorate degree, the requirements basically break down into two categories. If you graduated from a U.S. university, or if you graduated from a non-U.S. university. And the main difference between the two programs is whether or not you require the TOEFL and whether or not you require a third-party evaluation. Okay? So some of the things that may be required for graduate admissions, it's actually different for every program, but these are some of the common requirements. The application, your U.S. university transcript, the GMAT or the GRE. So the GRE is used for most programs, the GMAT is used for business programs. There is no minimum score for most GRE or in most programs. But what we do is we review applicants holistically. So that means we look at your entire application package. Your transcripts, your letters of recommendation, your personal statement, your resume, and your GRE. So I have a lot of grad students that ask me, oh, you know, I have a really good GPA, I did really well in my bachelor's program, but I just got a horrible GRE score. That doesn't mean that you can't get admitted, because we look at your entire admissions package holistically. Okay? That's the same if you graduated from a U.S. university or if you graduated outside the U.S. Okay? Okay, so if you flip that over, I've got just two clarifications. One is about English proficiency. So, like I mentioned before, we do require the TOEFL or the IELTS. So these are the two primary tests of English proficiency. The TOEFL IBT, we require a minimum score of 79. So like I just said, there's no minimum score for the GRE. We look at you holistically. There is a minimum score for the TOEFL and for the IELTS. And there are no exceptions. Every day I get students that email me, oh, I got a 78, please. There are no exceptions. If you don't have a 79, you have to retake it. Okay? Or you can take the IELTS, which the minimum score is 6.5. Some tests are more popular in some countries or others. I have heard, just anecdotally, that the IELTS is slightly easier, but that is your choice. I have some students that take both exams because they want to see which one is easier, but it's up to you. We accept them both. So like I said, I have students that ask me all the time, do I really need to submit a TOEFL or an IELTS score? So the answer is yes, unless you qualify for one of the exceptions. So these are some of the exceptions that I have listed. You attended a U.S. high school for at least a year and you graduated. So if you went to high school here, no TOEFL for you. If you attended a U.S. community college or another university, and you earned 30 hours, so 30 hours is about 10 classes, or about 1 year. You went to community college for a year, and you completed English 1 with a C or better, right? And then the next exception is if you earned your bachelor's or your master's degree here. So for grad students, if you already have your bachelor's degree from a U.S. university, there's no TOEFL required for you. Or if you graduated high school or university from an English-speaking country, for example, if you lived in Australia or the UK, you would be exempt for that. And then the last category is if you happen to hold dual citizenship with an English-speaking country. Okay? And if you're not sure, like, oh, I lived in Belize for a while, does that count? I have my TOEFL waiver country list with me too, so I can check for you. Okay? And then the last thing that I said I would talk a little bit more about is the third-party evaluations. So what that is that's kind of an external company that will evaluate your non-US transcripts, right? So actually, the reason why we require this is because in order to evaluate transcripts from non-US institutions, you really have to be a specialist, right? So we have individuals at our school that work in international admissions, but we cannot be specialists on every single country, right? I might know a little bit about Brazil, a little bit about China, a little bit about Nigeria, but I can't be a specialist in everything. So the third-party companies, they are specialists in every country. They have individuals that evaluate specifically for certain countries. And so that's why we require that you have that third-party evaluation. There are some universities that do in-house evaluations. They are usually the biggest universities, like University of Texas, because they have a lot of staff and they can do that. But most universities will require that you do a transcript evaluation. So we accept evaluations from SDR Education. They're actually a company that's based here in Houston. They tend to be very fast. They only take about 2 weeks, which is pretty fast by evaluation standards. And we also accept from NACIS member agencies. So NACIS is a consortium of many different agencies. You may have heard of some of them like SpanTran or WES. So we accept from those agencies as well. Like I said, we can't do in-house evaluations. I wish we could. I know it would save students a lot of time, but we can't. So I tell students to budget about 2 to 4 weeks to get their transcript evaluated. It's not a very quick process. So if you're thinking about applying for a program and it's coming up on the deadline, make sure to have that evaluation done as soon as possible. So there are different kinds of evaluations, and this is very important to get the correct evaluation for the type of program that you are applying for. So if you are applying as a freshman, you just finished high school, you need a general evaluation with a high school GPA. If you are applying as a transfer student, so you've done some coursework in Brazil, maybe you did 2 years in Brazil and now you're transferring, you need a course-by-course evaluation with university GPA. What that means is instead of saying, Mariana has done 12 courses and she has a B average, they're going to say, Mariana has done Physics 1, Physics 2, Calculus 1, Calculus 2, and that way we know if we can transfer your courses into our university. Okay, so that's really important to do course by course. And then if you're applying for a graduate program, you need to do course by course with GPA and degree conferral. So that means, like, let's say you're applying for your master's in chemistry, we need to know that you did all of those courses in chemistry, and we need to know what your grade was, and we need to confirm that you actually got your degree. Does that make sense? The third-party transcript evaluation is one of those areas where students sometimes get a little bit lost. So I like to kind of explain it, and of course you can ask me if you have a specific question. One really important thing that I like to note about third-party evaluations is that they are not directly correlated to US GPA system. What I mean by that is I'll have students sometimes tell me, oh, I checked my GPA calculator online, and in Brazil I had an average grade of 6. And it told me that the GPA in the US is equivalent to 1.5, which is too low to be admitted to the program. But different countries are weighted differently. So that means a 6 in Brazil might actually be equivalent to like a 3.0 here. And so that's really important not to use like the GPA calculators online. They're not accurate. That's why we have you do the transcript evaluation. I know lots of personal stories of Brazilian students that thought their grades were too low to be accepted, and then they got their transcript evaluation back, and it turns out, oh, they're okay, no problem. Okay? So don't panic about that. Yes?
Do you recommend any of those third parties, or?
So officially, we are not supposed to recommend any of them, but unofficially, SDR. SDR is the fastest and cheapest, and they're based locally. They also sometimes evaluate GPAs like slightly higher than some of the others. It just depends.
But they are good for all graduations? They are good for all the graduations? Like
Yes, they do all countries, all programs, all program levels.
all graduations?
Yep, they're actually quite a large agency. Any other questions about admissions, third party? Yes?
You mentioned about degree confirmed.
Yes.
How does that happen? Do you guys get in touch with the university in Brazil or the country, and then basically you guys get in touch with them to make sure that we attended the classes in the country?
Yeah, so that's actually a really good question. So what I recommend is that you actually talk to the transcript evaluator first. So if you're going to use SDR, contact SDR and tell them that, okay, I graduated from Federal University of Rio de Janeiro. And they will tell you exactly what you need to provide. Remember I said they're specialists? Like they will tell you down to the university what you need to provide. And another problem that I see sometimes with Brazilian students and Brazilian universities is that sometimes they cannot get official transcripts. Sometimes, for example, the office is on strike or something is going wrong. And so for US standards, we consider official to be sealed in an envelope. But sometimes Brazilian universities, they won't provide it or something like that. But SDR and the transcript evaluation companies, they know this. And so they have, for example, like 10, 20 years of transcripts from Federal University of Rio de Janeiro, and they can compare yours to the others to verify that it is authentic, even though it is unsealed. Does that make sense? So that's why it's important to contact the company, the agency first, because they will tell you exactly what you need. So they might be able to accept a copy, they might be able to accept an unofficial paper. It depends on the university, and it depends on the program to an extent as well. But I've never had a student, from Brazil at least, not be able to provide what they needed. Yeah. I mean, they even know like what universities are striking and all.
So I would say that would be basically the diploma, right?
Yeah, so it's gonna, it's usually like the transcript of courses that you've taken, and then at the end, it will show that the degree was conferred. But depending on the program, it might be the actual diploma or the certificate. Yeah, but they'll tell you exactly what you need. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yes.
for example, I graduated in engineering course over there. I want to take a different engineering course here. I don't want to go master's. So I would ask for the course evaluation from university GPA to try to make equivalency to some classes. So I could just come here and say I've done this and this, so I don't need to do it again.
So there's two reasons why you would need to do the course by course with the GPA. The first is admissions will require it because they want to know that you have a high enough GPA to be admitted. So for example, for us, for transfer students, the minimum GPA is 2.5. So we have to verify that the work that you did in Brazil is at least a 2.5 GPA or higher. The other reason, the course by course, is because if you've already taken calculus, if you've already taken physics, we don't want you to have to take it again. And that actually varies a lot country to country. Sometimes we'll get transcripts from Vietnam or from India, and it's not equivalent, and the student will have to take it again. But Brazil is pretty okay. Usually when you do course by course evaluation, as long as it's something related, normally you can transfer some of those courses in. Now, if you're going from engineering to dance, then maybe it's not going to work for you. But if it's a related program, you should be able to transfer something. Any other questions about admissions?
Is there any minimum number of hours that separates a freshman applicant from a transfer applicant?
Yeah, 11. Specifically 11. And if you're concerned, the brochure that I gave you earlier, it actually, I'm sorry, the transfer brochure, I can show you there's different requirements if you have 0 to 11, 12 to 17, and then 18 or more. But basically, if you have 11 hours or fewer, so that's about like 4 classes or fewer, you're treated as a freshman. If you have 12 to 17, you're treated as a transfer, but you have to have a 2.5 GPA. And then if you have 18 or more, you have to have a 2.0.
Is that the same for the answers in the FAFSA, do you know?
Yeah, it should be the same for the answers in the FAFSA. I can check for you, and I have a financial aid brochure here too. Yeah. Any other questions about that? You guys anxiously awaiting information about scholarships? Yes?
Some universities I've known that for people that live in Texas, they give a discount on the tuition. And I've also learned for people in the past that they get financial aid from the government with lower rates, etc. to pay for college. But I don't know if I've read, my memory is a little bit blurry on it, but I read some actions taken by the current government against green card holders that take financial aid from the government. How does that match?
That's a loaded question. Okay. let me get to that one bit at a time. Mariana, can you grab these? So let's go on and talk about scholarships, funding, and work opportunities. So that's the other paper that I handed out earlier. If you don't have one, just raise your hand. Mariana can come around and grab for you. So I'm going to talk. It looks similar, but it has a different title. So I'm going to get around to answering the question about the government policies. But before I do that, I want to talk just a little bit about the scholarships and how you can qualify for in-state tuition too, which is basically paying the same tuition rate as local students. So to answer your question about green card holders, this information is aimed at international students. So those are students who are on an F1 student visa, or if you are a dependent visa, so an L class or an H class visa, this can also apply for you. This information is mostly not about permanent residents and citizens, but I do have some information for residents and citizens up here. So if you'd like to grab it at the end, you can do that as well. So, we have quite a few different scholarship opportunities at Sam Houston. In fact, we have more than 900 scholarships as part of our Scholarships for Cats portal. But I picked out a couple of the bigger opportunities here. Okay? So the first one is called the Good Neighbor Scholarship. Has anyone heard of that? So this scholarship is very, very under-promoted. And I'm kind of on a personal vendetta here to promote it as much as I can and get the word out as much as I can. The Good Neighbor Scholarship is actually a scholarship at all Texas public universities. So Sam Houston, UH, UT, A&M, Lamar, Texas State, all of them. Okay? And actually, it is specifically for students from countries of the Americas. Good neighbor, get it? Good neighbor, Americas. And what they mean by the Americas is everyone except the US and Cuba, because so that includes Brazilian students, it includes Canadians, Peruvians, everyone, okay? And there's a couple really interesting things about this scholarship. The first thing is that it is a full tuition waiver. Full, like you don't pay tuition at all. It's for 1 year, but you can apply multiple years. And it's for students who are in their second year or higher. So you do have to complete at least 1 year before you can apply for it. And how it works is very interesting. It is not a scholarship. You don't get money. It's a waiver, which means the government just takes away your fee statement, if you you can imagine it like that. Okay? And what happens is every year we have students apply for it. We have a committee that ranks those students, and in the entire state of Texas, from every country, there are students that are awarded the scholarship. And so based on how high you are ranked by the committee, that's a greater chance of getting it versus if you're ranked low. Every year they give scholarships to 10 students per country, but then also some years they choose like specialized countries that year, or targeted countries, where they give 25 scholarships per country. So this is something, if you come to Sam Houston, you will get emails from me in the spring about this. Don't forget to apply, information. You only need a 2.0 GPA, which is actually fairly low compared to most scholarships. And I tell students, even if you don't think that you're competitive, even if you're not sure if you're going to get all your application materials in on time, absolutely apply, because it's a full tuition waiver, and it's really the only full tuition waiver that you have access to as an international student. So every year we have, I don't know how many I told you, like 10 to 12 students that are awarded this. So that's not insignificant. It's a pretty good scholarship.
It's 10 students per university, or?
Yeah, so presumably the bigger universities will have more students that are awarded. I can only speak for Sam Houston, but we usually have 10 to 12 students. Yeah. And we have had some students too that were awarded multiple years in a row. I have one student who got it 3 years in a row, so she's barely paid tuition at all. Yeah.
So this scholarship is for undergraduate, or it can be master's?
This scholarship is actually for all levels, as long as you have completed 1 year. So for undergraduates, you have to be in your second year, and same for masters or for doctoral students, you have to be going into your second year.
Okay.
Yeah. So you cannot apply for it your first year, but your second year you can. Okay? So the next biggest scholarship that I really like to promote is called the Bearcat Transfer Scholarship. And so this is actually if you are thinking, or if you're already attending community college first. So one way a lot of students like to save money is they like to go to HCC or to Lone Star for 2 years first. There's no reason why you can't do that. It's actually a really fantastic way to save money. And if you do that, you can qualify for the Bearcat Transfer Scholarship, which is between $1,000 and $3,000 per year. The only requirement is that you have to have a 2.75 GPA and at least 45 hours. So that's a little less than 2 years completed. Right now, more than 50% of our international students that are transfer students receive this scholarship. So it's huge. And also, the one part of the reason why it's huge is because it's an automatic scholarship. You don't have to apply for it. When you apply for admission, if you meet the minimum requirements, you will be awarded it. So that's a really kind of good thing to think about if you're thinking about community college, or if you're currently at community college, you can qualify for that.
But that's only if you've done more than 11 hours in community college?
45 hours, yeah, for that specific one. 45 hours. So that's about a year and a half. Yeah. There's no upper limit though, so 2 years, 2.5 years, it's fine.
What about on the good neighbor one?
Mm-hmm.
If they're in their second year, but they do their first year to community college here?
So it's possible. The catch is that they have to have a GPA at the institution where they're applying. So if they did like half a year at a community college, they could possibly qualify, but I would have to look at it on a case-by-case basis. Yeah. Okay, the next two scholarships, I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about. You can read about them. These are actually for permanent residents or U.S. citizens. I wasn't sure what crowd we would have here tonight, so I wanted to include them because they're two of the bigger scholarships. But you do have to be a permanent resident or a U.S. citizen for those two. So they are the Smith-Hudson Scholarship and the McNair Scholarship. So skipping past that, if you see the red box at the bottom, other scholarship opportunities. So we have, as I mentioned before, a program called Scholarships for Cats. So Scholarships for Cats, universities have been kind of revamping the way that they do scholarships, and what they've found is that students really don't like to complete 100 different scholarship applications. So what Scholarships for Cats is after you've been accepted, you can go into the Scholarships for Cats portal and complete one application, And after you complete the application, it will sort the scholarships to tell you which ones you are qualified for. And then you can go through and basically apply now, apply now, apply now, apply now with one application. So it's really a way to streamline the process for students. There are more than 900 scholarships here, and there's scholarships for every different type of student. A lot of them are merit-based, so if you have a high GPA, you've gotten straight A's, there's a lot of opportunity for that. A lot of them are departmental-based, so if you're going to be studying construction management, the Department of Construction Management has their own scholarships. And so you can go through, you can fill that out, and it will sort which ones you qualify for, and it's just a really easy way to streamline the process. Okay? So on the back, I want to address the question that you brought up earlier, which is, can I get reduced tuition, or can I pay resident tuition? For example, if I've been living in Texas for a really long time, right? So the answer is yes and no. You cannot get resident tuition just because you've been living in Texas for a really long time if you are on what's called a non-immigrant visa. So a non-immigrant visa is like an F1 student visa. So if you think about that, the word resident and the word non-immigrant are opposites of each other, right? And that's why you're not able to get in-state tuition or resident tuition just based on living here. That is not true for L visa holders and H visa holders. So if you're on a dependent class visa, you can get in-state tuition. Also, the other caveat there is that if you receive any scholarship of $1,000 or more per academic year, so if you receive the Bearcat Transfer Scholarship, or if you receive a departmental scholarship, you can qualify for in-state tuition. So that's kind of a loophole in our system, is that you cannot qualify based on residency because you've lived here for 4 years, but you can qualify if you get a scholarship. And like I said earlier, the most common scholarship is that Bearcat Transfer Scholarship. More of our international students pay resident tuition than pay non-resident tuition. So even though you might think, oh, I don't know if I'll get a scholarship, that sounds really hard, it's very common. So don't write that off. And just to give you guys kind of an idea of what that means, resident versus non-resident tuition, you can see here this little chart that I put together. So the undergraduate, the bachelor's programs are on top. The non-resident tuition, based on 12 hours, is just over $9,000 per semester, 2 semesters in 1 year. So that's about more than $18,000 per year. Okay? In comparison, resident tuition is just over $4,000 per semester, or a little over $8,000 per year. Right? We are one of the cheapest universities in Texas, 4-year public universities. In fact, we're only a little bit more expensive than community college. So if you are thinking about ways that you can save money, I have a lot of students come to me and they say, Dana, like, I need to go to college, but I need to do it cheapest way humanly possible. I tell them, 2 years at Houston Community College, get the Bearcat Transfer Scholarship, come to Sam Houston, pay resident tuition. Cheapest way to get a bachelor's degree in Texas. Okay, so if you're money focused, that's a plan for you. Okay, the graduate tuition is just below, and you can see too, we have ways for graduate students to pay resident tuition. The most common way that graduate students can pay non-resident tuition other than scholarships, pay resident tuition other than scholarships, is through something called graduate assistantships. Has anyone heard of a graduate assistantship? So an assistantship is a combination of a scholarship and a part-time job. There are different types of graduate assistantships, but the most common types are teaching assistantships and research assistantships. So for a research assistantship, you might be helping a professor, like in his lab or in her lab. For a teaching assistantship, you would actually be teaching a course, usually to the first-year students. So depending on what major you're looking at, those are both options for you. I've written a little bit here about the different programs that have scholarships and have assistantships. But one thing to note is College of Sciences. So if you're thinking about doing biology, chemistry, geography, math, statistics, they have assistantships for all of the students that are accepted into their programs. That means if you are accepted, you automatically get an assistantship. So that's not true for all programs, but it is true for all programs in the College of Science. They have a really high demand for graduate students right now. Okay? Okay, so if you're thinking, okay, that's great, but this still looks really expensive. University is expensive, it's true. What else can I do? So here's a couple different things that you can possibly do. So the first is Jobs for Cats. So as an international student, if you're on an F1 visa or an L or H class visa, you can work on campus as a student worker up to 20 hours per week. So most of the student worker jobs pay about $9, $10 an hour. You're not going to get wealthy, but it certainly helps contribute to be paying your tuition, to your cost of living. There's a lot of different types of jobs on campus. You can work at the library, the rec center. You can work for departments in their departmental offices. And so that's a really good opportunity. International students are not, or international F1 students are not allowed to work off campus. So you're not allowed to work at like McDonald's or Walmart or different places like that. So it's really good to take the opportunity to find a job on campus, right? I actually hold a workshop in the fall for all my international students about how to find a job on campus, how to build a resume, how to write a cover letter, how to do an interview. So I tell all my students, come check out the workshop. It's really useful, okay? The other two ideas or things that you can possibly do are called CPT and OPT. So CPT stands for Curricular Practical Training. This is work authorization during your program. So if you're doing an undergrad program, a lot of programs in their third or fourth year will have an internship component, and students will request authorization to work off campus. So that means if you wanted, let's say you're doing engineering technology and you wanted to work off campus in an internship for Chevron, you can get authorization up to 12 months to do that. It can be paid or unpaid, okay? This is during your program. CPT is during your program. And then the other one is called OPT, Optional Practical Training. That is after your program. So if you're thinking ahead and you're thinking, okay, I graduated, now what? Right? That's the dreaded question. I graduated, now what? The first step after graduation is applying for optional practical training. So that is work authorization that is in a related field immediately following your graduation. So for example, if you did chemistry, it needs to be something related to chemistry. You can't go and work for McDonald's, but you can do something related to chemistry. There's a couple interesting things about OPT. So OPT is 1 year. However, if you are in a STEM field, so engineering, technology, math, something like that, you can get an extension of 24 months. So total, 3 years, right? You can also do OPT at every program level. So if you do your associate's degree at Houston Community College or Lone Star, you can do OPT after that. When you do your bachelor's degree, you can do OPT again. If you decide to go for your master's degree, you can do OPT again, right? So a lot of students kind of use this to prolong the time that they are legally in status in the US. So OPT also, depending on your program and depending on what your career goals are, can lead into H-1B work authorization and other ways to stay here in the States. Okay. Did I answer all of your questions? Yeah? So financial aid, like I mentioned, I do have some information about financial aid here. We make a distinction here between international students, any student that is on a visa, and permanent residents and U.S. citizens. Financial aid, except for scholarships, is only for permanent residents and U.S. citizens. So that's grants, loans. There is some rumors about people not looking favorably about permanent residents using financial aid. But it's rumors at this point. It's kind of a decision that you need to make. And there's two different types of financial aid, which is explained here. There's the FAFSA, which is federal financial aid, and the TASFA, which is Texas financial aid. My understanding is that the rumors and the critique is for the FAFSA, and the TASFA is much more at the state level. And so just to give you kind of an example of that, people who are undocumented or who are on DACA, deferred action can actually apply for TASFA. So TASFA is a little bit less rigorously controlled, if that makes sense. But if you're concerned about that, or if you have questions about financial aid, I can help with that later too. Are there any questions about scholarships, work opportunities, funding?
If you're a permanent resident,
Yes.
an unintentional permanent resident, can you apply for FAFSA or all
Yeah,
the
so if you're a
FAFSA?
permanent resident or a U.S. citizen, well, if you're a U.S. citizen, of course, but if you're a permanent resident, you're basically treated exactly like a U.S. citizen. You are not an international student for university purposes. So you can apply, just as a U.S. citizen would apply, you would apply for FAFSA, TASFA, you would also qualify for loans, grants.
If you qualify for FAFSA, then you only apply for FAFSA, right? And it transfers to.
Say that one more time.
If you qualify to apply for FAFSA, then you only have to do that one, right? You don't have to do both.
I think you have to do both, but they're connected. Like if you go in to file for FAFSA, it'll ask you about your state, and then it'll prompt you to complete the information for TASFA too. Yeah, they're connected. Yeah.
I have a question regarding to the transfer scholarship.
Yes.
I am graduated in engineering in Brazil, but I have also 2 years of community college here. In this case, I'm eligible for apply for the scholarship for master. I mean,
For
master for graduated program.
for the transfer scholarship or for
Yeah,
which scholarship?
for the transfer scholarship.
So the transfer scholarship is only for students that are applying at the undergraduate level. So if you're applying directly for a master's, you wouldn't qualify for that.
No.
No, but there are, like I mentioned here, there are assistantships and scholarships at the graduate level, and a lot of, it really depends on what program you're applying for, but a lot of the programs do offer at least $1,000 scholarships, which would qualify you then for resident tuition. Which program are you interested in?
Engineering.
Engineering? It depends, I'd have to take a look at it, but you wouldn't qualify for the Bear Transfer Scholarship specifically.
Thank you.
Yeah?
And the same question for PhD.
For which one?
PhD.
PhD in what program? In engineering?
No, health.
In health? So most of our health programs do offer either assistantship or like a scholarship minimum of 1,000. Yeah. And the idea behind that is actually a lot of the departments, they don't have a lot of funding to give to students. They cannot offer you, for example, like $5,000, $10,000 scholarship, but they know that if they offer you $1,000, that you get the resident tuition, which actually ends up being like a $6,000 scholarship. If you reduce from the non-resident to the resident and your $1,000, it ends up being a bigger scholarship. So that's kind of a way that they use scholarships to help you get more money, or at least reduce your tuition price. Yeah. Any other questions? I think we are wrapping up. Would you like to add anything more?
I can talk about my personal experience doing OPT and all of this.
Yeah,
stuff,
yeah.
'cause I went through that.
Yeah, okay, so Professor Herman is going to talk a little bit about her personal experience, but I just want to remind you guys at the end, I'll stay and feel free to grab whatever information you'd like, and I'm happy to answer questions too if you have, crazy, unique, special situation, or just something that's bothering you.
Escrever roteiro, etc., o MFA é o mesmo nível do PhD. Então, os meus colegas que têm PhD, eles dão aula de teoria, de crítica, de história, eu dou aula prática. Né? Então, essa é a diferença. Então, eu fiz um MFA na Southern Illinois University como uma aluna dentro do visto F1. E dentro desse visto F1, eu tinha uma teaching assistantship. Então, nessa Teaching Assistantship, eu dava aula na universidade para os alunos do primeiro ou segundo ano, né, nos primeiros níveis, com a supervisão de um professor. Né? Então, sempre tem um professor te auxiliando, te ensinando, etc. O que, na verdade, é bom em diversos níveis, assim. Uma porque você tem assistência financeira, né? E aí cada estado tem suas regras, o estado de Illinois é diferente daqui. Então as regras aqui são as regras que a Lina passou para vocês. Mas a segunda coisa que é muito boa é que isso, na verdade, também entra pro teu currículo, né? Porque apareceu no meu currículo como dando aula em nível de graduação por 3 anos, né? Então, uma vez que eu terminei o meu mestrado, eu me tornei, eu pude aplicar para o OPT, né, que é o Optional Practical Training, e eu fiz isso depois de ter terminado o meu mestrado. Então eu tive os 3 anos no F1, né, e aí o OPT você continua no mesmo visto, você continua no F1, e você tem que conseguir um emprego, né, essa é a parte que é um pouquinho mais difícil, então eu mandei currículo à beça. Eu levei sorte porque a universidade onde eu estudei estava contratando. E como eles já me conheciam e tudo mais, e eu já tinha dado aula para eles, acabou que foi uma transição até relativamente fácil para mim. Então eu trabalhei dando aula daí como uma Visiting Assistant Professor na Southern Illinois University, trabalhei por 1 ano dentro do OPT. Depois de 1 ano eles renovaram o meu contrato, aí me passando por um visto de trabalho, né? E eu fiquei mais 1 ano na Southern Illinois University. Quando eu terminei esse 1 ano, meu contrato com eles era anual, então expirou o contrato. Eu estava já aplicando para outros lugares, apliquei para Sam Houston State University, que não era uma posição de visitante, né? Era uma posição já como diz? Permanente. E aí, quando eu entrei na Southern Illinois na Sam Houston State University, eu vim com o H1B, com o visto de trabalho, né? E uma vez com o visto H1B, acredito que depois de 1 ano você se torna eligible, né, para o Green Card. Então a própria universidade aplicou para o meu Green Card depois de 1 ano, para eu poder continuar trabalhando. Como eu era uma professora permanente, eu tinha que continuar aqui de alguma forma, né? Então depois de 1 ano eu me tornei eligible para o Green Card através da Sam Houston State University, né? Então, assim, eu sei que às vezes a gente pensa, nossa, é super difícil fazer essas coisas, mas na verdade, assim, existem várias opções, né? Uma coisa que eu queria mencionar, não sei se é o caso para vocês aqui, mas talvez vocês estejam aqui porque tem alguém do Brasil querendo vir para cá, alguma coisa assim. Uma outra bolsa que não foi comentada é a Fulbright. Não sei se alguém conhece a Fulbright. É uma bolsa americana parecida com o que a gente tem como CAPES e CNPq no Brasil. Eu vim com uma grant da Fulbright, que eu consegui no Brasil, que era para alunos academicamente excelentes que só tinham estudado em escola pública, que era o meu caso. Então eu apliquei para essa bolsa da Fulbright e eles me deram um dinheiro para fazer a inscrição nas universidades americanas, que normalmente tem um valor, para fazer o GRE, então eu fiz o GRE, para fazer o TOEFL, então eu também fiz o TOEFL, e eles pagaram por todos esses custos, inclusive eles pagaram por umas aulinhas que eu fiz de matemática para passar no GRE. Matemática não é comigo. E assim, é o que a Dina falou, a minha nota do GRE não foi lá grandes coisas. Eu fui bem no TOEFL, né, eu já falava inglês, então não tive muito problema com o TOEFL. Mas no GRE, assim, eu não tinha uma nota muito boa, especialmente na parte de matemática. Para mim era muito difícil, porque nunca foi a minha área, sempre fui da área das artes. E aí eu sei que a minha nota no GRE não foi muito boa. Isso não me impediu de ser aceita em 3 universidades nos Estados Unidos, tá? Então, não levem isso assim como uma coisa do tipo, não, nunca vou passar nesse GRE, meu Deus, minha nota vai ser horrível, não vou me aceitar. Muitos dos cursos, eles consideram o GRE como uma parte da tua nota, mas não é necessariamente uma coisa que corta você da competição, se você tiver uma nota que não é muito boa, tá? Então, por exemplo, na minha área, que é Mass Communication, a gente pede o GRE, a gente olha pro GRE, mas não é o GRE que faz a gente... A não ser que você empate com algum aluno, assim, tipo, todo mundo tá ali no mesmo nível, não é uma coisa que a gente vai deixar de aceitar um aluno porque o GRE não é muito bom. Se o resto do application do aluno for muito boa, a gente com certeza aceita. Então não é uma coisa assim que seja algo que elimine ninguém, tá? Então eu só queria passar assim essa experiência pessoal para vocês, porque eu acho que é uma coisa que às vezes a gente olha e pensa, não, é impossível, imagina, nunca vou conseguir fazer isso. É super possível, muita gente faz, tem que correr atrás, né? Mas a gente está aqui justamente para ajudar vocês. O Departamento Internacional da SHSU ajuda muito. Todas as universidades, todas as instituições têm um departamento internacional para ajudar. Então, assim, mesmo que o objetivo de vocês não seja Sam Houston State University, procurem os departamentos internacionais, que elas têm pessoas especializadas para ajudar vocês. Né? O departamento internacional da SIU, onde eu estudei, me ajudou muitíssimo enquanto eu estava na universidade. Né? Inclusive conseguindo tipo empregos de verão, porque o meu emprego normalmente era só de 9 meses, né? Então, através do departamento internacional, eu conheci pessoas que me ajudaram a conseguir um emprego de verão dentro da universidade. Então, eles ajudam muito. Então, não deixem de consultar, porque vale bastante a pena. Tá? Alguém tem alguma pergunta?
Se ela for muito básica, a gente não pode passar, mas assim, eu estou olhando aqui mais para o futuro com relação ao funcionamento dos meus filhos e tudo mais. E eu passei a graduação toda, em pós-graduação no Brasil, então eu estou tentando entender mais ou menos como é que funciona o sistema americano. A gente tem as questões de major, minor, que é um pouco diferente, se pudesse comentar um pouco. Outra questão é, por exemplo, eu vejo que a empresa em qual eu trabalho, ela oferece bolsa praticamente, ou oferece posições de trabalho praticamente para um grupo muito fechado de universidades. E eu vejo que aqui existe uma questão com relação à fama ou a forma como as pessoas olham a universidade. Como é que eu faço, e aí não é uma questão com a saúde, mas de forma geral, como é que eu faço para avaliar se aquela universidade é boa, não é boa, ou quanto que isso é de fato real na hora de fazer conseguir um emprego? Quanto que isso é? Pudesse comentar um pouco assim, a relação, a diferença, como é a parte tradicional de progressão de carreira no Brasil, como aqui, como é que funciona?
Bom, então assim, começando pela primeira parte, você me perguntou a diferença de major e minor, né? Minor é uma coisa que a gente não tem no Brasil, né? Então é uma coisa específica aqui dos Estados Unidos. Inclusive, no meu departamento, a gente tem alguns minors diferentes. Então, por exemplo, tem um minor em Film Studies, tem um minor em Sports Media, né? O minor é como se ele fosse uma complementação do teu major, né? Então, digamos assim, no meu caso, no meu departamento, eu tenho um major que é em Film Production. Então, o meu aluno, ele vai se formar como, no diploma dele vai aparecer Mass Communication Film Production, né? Se ele adicionar um major, vai também aparecer que ele tem mais essa outra área de conhecimento. Depende do major, são diferentes números de horas que eles têm que fazer. Então, por exemplo, eu acredito que o Film Studies são 18 horas a mais que eles têm que fazer, então são aulas extras que eles fazem, né? Então, é uma área de conhecimento que eles estão se especializando de uma certa forma, tá? Não é igual a especialização do Brasil, mas é como se eles estivessem se especializando numa outra coisa, tá? E isso pode ajudar para a carreira deles em geral, né? Alguns alunos fazem só porque gostam de estudar, outros alunos fazem porque eles já estão pensando numa carreira, né? Então, por exemplo, a gente tem alguns dos minors que a gente tem que são muito populares, assim, são os em línguas, né? Então, o aluno faz lá Mass Communication e tem um minor em alemão, né? Então, quando ele for conseguir um emprego depois, ele pode, por exemplo, numa empresa alemã, ele pode dizer, eu tenho um Mass Communication com um minor em alemão, né? Então, isso já é uma coisa que ajuda, no caso, para deixar o currículo um pouco mais bonito, assim, etc, né? Mas não é uma coisa que a gente tenha no Brasil, não existe, pelo menos não que eu saiba, não existem minors no Brasil, só existem majors no Brasil, né, que são os bacharelados ou as licenciaturas. Então essa era a primeira pergunta. A segunda pergunta era sobre fama de universidade, né? Então, assim, na verdade, o que eu aprendi depois de algum tempo é que não é exatamente a instituição inteira que tem uma fama. Claro que a gente tem as Ivy League Universities, né, Yale, Harvard, etc., que tem uma fama muito boa. Mas, por exemplo, o curso da Sam Houston, I forget, the third one in the country. Criminal Justice. Sempre esqueço o nome do Criminal Justice. O Criminal Justice da Sam Houston State University está em terceiro no país. Então, eu não sei, eu estou chutando aqui, tá? Mas talvez ele esteja à frente do Criminal Justice de Harvard, tá? Então, não é exatamente assim, a universidade inteira tem uma fama, mas o curso que você está procurando tem uma fama, tá? O que, assim, eu ouço falar, não estou julgando, mas algumas universidades que são completamente online têm uma fama, assim, mais ou menos nos Estados Unidos. É o que eu ouço falar. Não posso julgar, não posso afirmar, não posso dizer nomes nem nada, porque eu realmente não sei, não conheço. Mas é o que eu já ouvi dizer, Tá? Agora, assim, quando, por exemplo, alguém aplica lá para minha universidade para trabalhar lá com a gente e eu estou analisando o currículo, claro que eu vou olhar a instituição, porque faz sentido eu olhar a instituição, mas eu vou olhar a instituição pensando no curso da instituição, não necessariamente na instituição como um todo. Então é mais nesse sentido que você tem que olhar, assim, o curso especificamente naquela universidade. E isso você acha online fácil, é só procurar por ranking de cursos das universidades, você consegue achar o ranking.
Can I add something to that
Sure.
too? I was going to say too, a lot of students ask like, how do I know what university is good or rankings, like how important are rankings? Another thing to consider too that I tell students a lot is that all state public universities have a certain level of regard. There are some that are highly ranked, more highly ranked than others, but if you say that you went to a state university, that conveys a certain level of excellence. Whereas if you went to a private university, some private universities like Harvard, Yale are very good. Other private universities are not so good. But saying that you went to a state university conveys a certain level of prestige. I don't know if you want to translate that or
Alguém quer que eu traduza o que ela disse? Não sei se precisa. Outra coisa também que é bom saber é que aqui nos Estados Unidos, assim como no Brasil existe o MEC que regulariza as universidades, aqui nos Estados Unidos também tem instituições que são regulamentadoras das universidades, especialmente as estaduais. Né? Então a gente tem que passar todo ano, por exemplo, a gente tem um teste de uma instituição chamada SACS, que eles vêm até a universidade ver como é que está o curso. Tá? Então, assim, não é uma coisa que eles deixam quieto e vai passando. Eles vêm olhar e você tem que estar dentro do padrão de qualidade deles, digamos assim. Então, existe isso aqui nos Estados Unidos e é levado muito a sério. Uma outra pergunta?
Sim, estamos aqui comentando sobre evaluation. Ok, no nosso caso, as três aqui da área de saúde. Talvez em níveis diferentes, mas em graduações diferentes também. É bem complicado encontrar uma validação direta. No caso médico, você tem que passar ainda por mais um tempo, fazer tipo outra especialização. Obrigada. Então, na sua avaliação, o que seria melhor? Fazer o evaluation ou fazer esse optivo?
Do you know? She wants to know, because they are from the health area, and there are evaluations that they need to take in order to be able to do their professions here.
like certification.
Like certifications kind of thing?
Yes, get a license for
To
work
get a
here.
license to
I
work in
think
that
they go
area.
match.
I'm not sure in
Same
the health sciences.
So it depends on the program. I'll give the example of nursing. So nursing, generally speaking, you have to do a BSN or like RN to BSN, LVN to BSN in order to take the licensure certification. And so it's a little bit different for other health fields. So I would have to just hear specifically what you're considering. But for example of nursing, you would have to do like at least 2 years at a U.S. institution to even be able to take the certification exam.
That's not true.
Is that true?
My sister's a nurse here.
Okay. Did she do? Was it like a partnership
She never
program
studied
or?
here.
Okay.
She
I don't
just-
know.
She just took the test for the license.
Okay. Maybe she was part of a different program I'm not aware of, but most of the students that I know have to do at least a 2-year program.
And what about physicians?
We actually we just got a medical school which is opening up in 2021, which is why I'm going to claim ignorance on all things medical related. I don't actually know anything about physicians or
And what
medical
about
school.
dentistry?
For the same reason. I can tell you about pre-med, but not about medical school. I will learn in the next 2 years though, by the time we get one.
A gente está abrindo um campus bem grande em Conroe, que vai ser de Osteopathic Medicine, e acabou de ser aprovado. Então, na verdade, o curso não começou ainda, mas vai começar. Eu só quero dizer aqui que o panfleto que eu estava entregando para elas, só caso alguém não saiba, então no Brasil a gente tem cursos de especialização, né? Que normalmente as pessoas fazem antes de mestrado. Eu, inclusive, fiz 2 no Brasil. Aqui nos Estados Unidos, uma coisa parecida com a nossa especialização é o Graduate Certificate Program. que é um curso de pós-graduação, mas não é um mestrado. Ele é chamado de certificate. E os departamentos, eles têm alguns diferentes cursos. Então, por exemplo, no meu departamento, a gente tem um que é Health Communication and Public Relations, que é um certificate program. A gente também tem um que é Teacher Certification Track. Tá? Então, para quem quer dar aula na área de comunicação, tem o Teacher Certification Track, que daí seria mais para dar aula para tipo nível de primeiro grau, segundo grau e etc. Né? E a gente tem um em Agricultural Communication também, para quem trabalha nessa área de agricultura e pecuária, etc. A gente tem Agricultural Communications também. Então, além dos cursos de mestrado e doutorado, existem também os cursos de especialização, que aqui são chamados de Certificate. Tem esse nome diferente.
Speaking English because you were talking about this, but question for both of you. You were mentioning about this, the way that you take first you to a community college, so you can apply for the scholarship or transfer into the other university, state university. And so if that's the plan, how to approach regarding questions for the international department? Should I go to the community college? Do they have? Or should I just go to the university or plan on attending later?
You can go to both. So HCC, Lone Star, all of the community colleges have an international office, and they can answer general questions for you. Our office at the university, we're somewhat small. We have 6 people, but we know all of our students. We do a lot of hands-on advising. If you go to HCC has 5,000 international students, and they have 10 people to advise them. So you may not get a lot of super helpful one-on-one information, but we do work with them. And so if you're interested in doing 2 years at HCC and then transferring, I can tell you all about how to do that. But when it actually comes to applying and to getting your visa documentation, you would go through the community college first. Yeah. Any other questions? Well, I think we're both going to stay for a little while, so we'd be happy to answer any questions you have personally. Would you like to say anything more?
Yes. Por favor, venham e peguem qualquer um dos panfletos que vocês quiserem. Pode pegar um de cada, tem até mais ali que não coube na mesa. E a gente está aqui para responder qualquer pergunta que vocês tenham.
I have business cards as well, if you'd like my email.
Eu esqueci o meu, mas se alguém quiser, eu passo.
Já.